This week on the Shameless Podcast.
I'm going to start with the thing that I've been really dying is AzaWatu culture. What is that? And what does that mean for you?
At AZA, we term ourselves as AzaWatus. And AzaWatu for us basically means, like you mentioned earlier, bringing our best selves to work. 100% kudos to our CEO and founder, Elizabeth. So first off, it starts from the company side. Okay, at AZA, our culture is ingrained in 5 basic things. How well we work together. So from being customer focused, to being flexible, to being resilient, to being accountable, and finally to have the proper teamwork.
What skills do you foresee being important for the next generation?
They need to prioritize a certain balance with their technical, with their interpersonal, and then the adaptability. The workforce now is more rapid. The pace is more rapid. Data can never go away. So some understanding of how to analyze or leverage data would help a lot because it then drives decision making.
How important do you feel having somebody who you can show the worst part of you, but also you can also try to show the best part of you? How important do you feel that has been for you?
I think in our lives and even in our entire career, it's important to have someone that we're vulnerable with, where we're not scared to share who we are, what mistakes we've made. And like they say, a problem shared is a problem half solved. So this comes to mind a lot, especially when I have 2 sons. I think I must have been in primary school, primary 5, so I must have been 9 years old. I just used to do enough to get my grades. Well, I remember my dad sat me down and he was like, you are giving it half measure. If you spend a bit more time, listening in class, revising what you've learned, studying, you just might get to the top. And guess what? I listened, I took some of his advice, and the next term I came 10th. The next term I came 2nd. The next term, and for the next 4, even into secondary school, I came in top 3.
Sometimes we are afraid to do something. You fear shame. I don't want shame. We're trying to break that burden by sharing stories of courage, resilience, and we want to be able to celebrate your story.
Shameless.
Good day, wonderful people. My name is Zikamai Gangaizo, and I'm the host for the Shameless Podcast. And today we've got Premo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Premo Ojokojo. I am originally from Nigeria, and I work with AZA Finance, which is a cross-border payments company based out of multiple countries. And I'm the Chief People and Operations Officer here at AZA Finance.
So, Premo, I've got a question for you. When you studied statistics,
Yes?
did you ever believe that you'd be in HR?
Honestly, no. When I was a lot younger, getting ready, I was in secondary school, I stayed in the sciences. So the maths, the English, the maths, the chemistry, biology, physics, technical drawing, advanced for the maths. And I actually was hoping to be an engineer. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of my father, who is an aeronautics engineer.
All right.
And was well renowned in news work. And I used to go visit at his office and I always loved tinkering with things. I could take apart a bicycle and put it back together, as long as I'm walking with my hands. And I always like to see and understand how machines work. So that was actually where my passion was a lot younger. However, I didn't do so well in chemistry. Couldn't get, and I didn't want to wait too long anymore. So when I applied to university, I didn't get into an engineering course, but I had the option to either switch to economics or statistics. And I went with maths and statistics finally, because I love math. So that's how I ended up in statistics. But during the 4 years of doing that, I always thought I was going to be working as a researcher. Like I like to tinker with things. I like to understand how things work.
Premo, I'm sorry, but
Mhm.
these things that you're saying don't really sound like very people-y people things.
Yeah. I like people-y people.
And you're very naturally into people, it seems.
So I have 6 siblings, 4
Wow.
sisters. I'm the third child. For some reason, I was always the mediator, the referee between anybody, my parents and my siblings, my co-siblings, The funny thing is I didn't used to talk a lot or interact a lot. I was more of an observer and would very quickly direct the conversation and find a way to make a change. So if things are looking heated, I come in and try to find a way to, calm it all down. And that I did not know that that was going to, in the future, help me in my people career. Never thought I would. When I first got out of university, I got a job as a data researcher in a consulting firm that does marketing research. And I never thought, honestly, that I was going to be in the people field, in the people front. Never. But while I worked there, the beauty of that organization, which was where I started from, I got to rotate from department to department. So I worked in my data field, worked in the administrative office, worked with finance, worked with marketing. But when I then started working with the people side, I got so interested in how all that works. So I quickly did a course in HR management just to understand. And I did it just for myself, just to understand people better, anyways. And I think that was what then eventually drove my passion for people. I spent 3, 4 years at that company, and a few in the early 2000s, there was an opportunity to join um, a company which is currently the one of the world's largest recruitment agencies. And I joined them as an entry-level consultant. So, but it was all about hiring people, finding the right people, interviewing and, filling vacancies. So I had quotas to fill vacancies on a monthly, quarterly basis. And it was more driven with the fact that I wanted to get my bonus at the end of the day. So sure that I hit my revenue numbers, I hit my fill rate on a monthly basis so that I was guaranteed my bonus exclusive of my fixed salary. So the bonus was more interesting for me at that time. So I got into the people space.
That's brilliant. And what I want to do is that part where you talked about what was driving you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to come back to that you wanted your bonus, and that is.
At that time, I just
So I'm gonna just quickly just give everybody a high level view of your bio. Like you mentioned, you're the chief people officer at AZA Finance, and you've got over 20 years experience at HR Resource Advisory.
Yes.
And prior to that, you held senior roles in various organizations across within Nigeria, but also across the African continent. You've got you've got experience in numerous HR functions, including strategies, policy formulation, employee relations, performance management, and organizational development. So you've also been very instrumental in building the AzaWatu culture. And we're going to talk about that because I'm extremely curious. I'm actually just intrigued because of the name, but even more so is about what it is, where every person feels empowered to bring their best self to work and operate as a diverse and yet completely unified team. And I will talk about this when we get to the second half of this discussion.
Okay.
Because I think the balance within modern society of having diversity, but uniformity to some degree or coordination is going to be interesting. So I'm going to put a little pin on that one, and I'm going to put a pin on the what you being inspired by the bonus, and we have to touch on that a bit later. You've told me some very interesting things. That father and aeronautical, you love to tinker, and in the end you were going to do engineering, but then you ended up in the people space. You said that your siblings had a part to play.
Yes.
Of your 6 siblings, which one is your favorite and why?
My gosh, if they think this is going to be a problem. My favorite will be my younger sister.
Why?
She gets me. There's no other way to put it. She gets me. So she doesn't like it, but she brags about it a lot. There's a 7-year gap between myself and her.
Yeah.
There's a boy in between, and I'm close to him, but not as close as my sister. She idolized me, so to speak. So to a certain degree, I always had to show her my best self. However, I could also show her my worst self, and there was no judgment. Where in the earlier stages, I have an older sister, I couldn't do that with her. So I made a conscious effort to ensure that I could do that with my younger sister.
So, with that, have you, over the years, how important do you feel keep having somebody who you can show the worst part of you, but also you can also try to show the best part of you? How important do you feel that has been for you in sort of your support, your growth, your community?
I think it's key. I think in our lives and even in our entire career, it's important to have someone that we're vulnerable with, where we're not scared to share who we are, what mistakes we've made. And even if the person doesn't have the answers, the fact that you've shared actually gives you some level, like they say, a problem shared is a problem half solved. It actually starts to give you insight. If you bottle it up, it makes it's harder to find a common ground for yourself. Yeah.
And so, who else would you say has been sort of a supportive structure within sort of your growth? How has that shaped your future? Like how you are?
Okay, so honestly, I would say my mom. And
Good.
this is one individual who we did not at some point. So as the story goes, my father passed on when I was just getting out of secondary school. And there was we used to have a lot of conflicts, but I realized that it was best to form a relationship with my mom because it was obvious she was, so down the line, I realized she was acting based on her own understanding. And also in the back of her mind, she was missing my dad because he took certain control of certain areas of our development over the years. And she was struggling with 7 kids and having to do this on her own. So I had to learn to be patient with her and then speak up. And so when any part of my career and any position I want to take or any step I want to take, she was always the first person I discuss it with. She will throw stuff at me like, this is my mom who, what's the company value? What do they look like? This was before we had internet that you could even search. There wasn't Google then in the early 1990s to like mid 2000s. But she'll be like, have you found out anybody? Did you ask other people apart from the interviewers what they were thinking? Have you, do you have any data or any information you can find out about the company? If you go there and put in your best. And if it doesn't work for you, you can always walk away. Always, and she said, always put your best foot forward. If everybody's talking and they're talking bad about the business, don't follow the masses. Always find a way to stand out and make yourself irreplaceable, indispensable, so that, and then like she always kept repeating that to me, always put in your best, always learn and put in your best. And I think that helped shape to a certain level my career.
But if you were to recite a memory, an experience that either it can be good or bad, but that had sort of the most lasting impact on the person that you are.
Okay. So this comes to mind a lot, especially when I have 2 sons, 10 and 13. So this always comes to mind when we're having conversations about where they want to go. My older at one point told me they want to go to university. I had to sit with him and go, dude, let's have a conversation. I'm not going to force you, but what's your future plan? I think I must have been in primary school, primary 5, so I must have been 9 years old. I just used to do enough. So to be honest, I used to do enough to get my grades. So, and then, it's not like now that they don't show positions. I don't know why, But in a class of 30 kids, I will come 15th, 16th. And I remember my dad sat me down and he was like, I'm not going to compare you with the other students in the class. However, I know that there is much more that you can do. You're giving it half measure. If you spent a bit more time, listening in class, revising what you've learned, studying a bit, maybe an hour more in the day, you just might get to the top. I'm not forcing you to get to the top, but I do not want you to limit your potentials. I do not want you to just do barely enough. I want you to know that when the result comes out, you can beat yourself on the chest and say, I put in my best. And guess what? I listened. I took some of his advice, and the next term I came 10th. The next term I came second. The next term, and for the next even into secondary school, I came in top 3. It was all because I listened, and like he said, I put in a bit more.
And that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Because I guess that sometimes you just need that right conversation, that push for you to be able to get to a level where I guess it's not necessarily even that uncomfortable, but it's more of an awakening.
In a bit, 10% more from what you're doing, you will see that the results are different.
And so that is a brilliant segue into what we're going to be talking about for the next 10, 15 minutes. And that is scaling high impact ventures, strategic leadership, and sustaining growth business. But this is in particular when we're looking at the retention, the recruitment, and the motivation of a workforce, a workplace, and a culture within the business. And so I'm going to start with the thing that I've been really, really dying is AzaWatu culture. What is that? And what does that mean to you?
Okay. At AZA, we call ourselves, so we term ourselves as AzaWatus. And AzaWatu for us basically means, like you mentioned earlier, bringing our best selves to work. Now, what does it mean to bring your best self to work? Like I'd mentioned with the conversation I had with my dad, where you're putting in, you understand. So first off, it starts from the company side, okay? At AZA, our culture is ingrained in 5 basic things. How well we work together. So from being customer focused, to being flexible, to being resilient, to being accountable, and finally to have the proper teamwork. Now we called it our craft. So how we craft our culture. Now, and 100% kudos to our CEO and founder, Elizabeth. What I remember during my interview, I joined AZA on the day that most companies shut down during COVID, which was March of 2020. And one of the first things we talked about, I asked her, what was your vision in setting up the business? She talked about how, she at that time lived in Kenya and realized how difficult it was for her, a foreigner, to make payments as simply as possible. The process was too long to get payments across. And she was like, what can I do to solve this here? I don't think at that time she was expecting it to be a company that has gone on for 11 years and then manage and are able to, do cross-border payments of 100 plus currencies and have customers and employees across various African and European countries. But at that time, it was that immediate need. How do I make a difference in the way payments are done? Then the second reason was she said she also wanted to create a workplace where people could come to work and do the work and be excited about doing the work and have fun while they do the work. Because as the company grows, she was like, people are our biggest assets. And it's not just byline. It's actually, she was like, I need you to come, as you come in to do the people function, I wanted to look at how we can keep the people retained. I want us to look at how we are, what policies, benefits, tools, practices are in place to ensure that people don't have to come to log in or come to work and be worried about everything else that happens to them. So what does that mean? Are we paying them the right compensation, providing the right benefits? What workplace activities can we do that will continue to integrate people into the system? How will people, because what is important, and especially for the younger generation, today's generation, if they always want to know the purpose of a thing. Why do we have this business? Why do I have to do this task? What's the reason for doing this? Help people always see the big picture about where we're going to. Yes, we want to drive revenue. Yes, we want to raise money. But much more, we make sure that we're providing a service that makes the African borders especially on, where I need to pay someone in Ghana and I'm based out of Senegal. I don't have to go through a long, winded process of change to dollar, change then, I don't want to go through that long-winded process. How can I? So at AZA, we create an environment where people can be innovative. No voice is ever shut down. We use tools like Slack that you can talk to anybody. We have hierarchy so that there is some order in the business. However, it doesn't stop you from speaking up and challenging the status quo. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
A monthly AzaWatu calls where we give insights about where we are, what direction we've gone, what we're doing, and anybody can critique it. Even before the call, people can drop in their questions and it's answered.
And who's on these AzaWatu calls?
Everybody, every exec and every employee. Everybody.
So how many employees are these?
We have at least so about 200, and we always have at least a 95% attendance. So let's take a typical African home. If your father or your mom is struggling financially or they're struggling at their jobs, they will not talk to you about it. They think it shouldn't be shared. Yes, I'm not saying that it's every single detail that is shared to every employee. However, where you can give cliff notes and get the team involved in finding the changes, it would happen. If we hide where we're going from the people, you will never get the best out of them. So that's why, the AzaWatu culture is we want to bring our best selves to work, meaning as I come into the office, I know that everything else is being sorted where, my family is okay. The policies are there where if I cannot make it to the office or I want to go work from my home country for a couple of weeks. I want to go visit my mom and I'm like, I'll be working out of the Nigeria office for the next 3 days. Nobody's going to stop me from doing that. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And so I think, and I touched on this when I was doing your intro, where it's that opinions, diversity of thought, diversity of individuals are tied back to a certain purpose, and that purpose drives a unified and then a coordinated approach towards solving the shared goal. And I love that it's centered around the monthly, or not centered, but there is the monthly AzaWatu calls. And so then I've got a question for you.
Cool.
I know there are a lot of people that go through their careers or who feel stuck and they either are afraid to quit or they are disgruntled and just sitting there waiting for something to change.
Okay.
And then I'm asking it from the inside of an individual.
Okay. So first of all, one of the things we're very careful about is people's ability to speak up for the grievances. So we have various anonymous platforms which you can raise your grievance. Now, when that grievance comes through to the people team, it's then shared either directly with me or one of the execs. Then a further check is done. And the process of how this is solved is actually clearly shared with you. Now, but that doesn't take away the fact that people will or choose to resign. We always try to create an environment where people don't want to go, okay? However, people still will want to move on. Now, if it's a case of you being stuck, we've had a couple of previous some colleagues or employees who, they're just in a rut and they do not know how to come out of it. So we take time off. If you're not taking time off, we had someone go on 2 months sabbatical, and we made that possible. The person went, traveled a bit, shopped around a bit, but came back. We also have what we call our boomerang program. We have a returnee program that is something else. This year alone, we had 6 people return to the company, 2 of which were our first ever employees in certain locations.
Wow.
They've been gone for 4 or 5 years, but they were more than willing to come back. So we always keep the door open, because the truth is people want to go try. We had one person who went, and 3 months later, she was back knocking at our doors like, come on, it's out there, it's crazy. I want to come back. As long as the position is still open, as long as there's need, as long as we can find a place, you can comfortably come back. So it's not that people don't leave, they do. But before they get to that point, we've done all that we can internally. So we also have an interdepartmental transfer. So you can say, hey, I want to move to a different department. I want to learn about what that department is doing. We'll give you the chance to go there, interact with that department, learn and see, okay, is this the direction I want to go? We put together a proper plan. We give you a 6-month period. You're still doing your current job, but you're spending 10 to 20% of your time in this new department, learning, getting mentored, getting coached, getting trained. And if after the 6 months, the feeling of, oh, okay, I want to go to that department and there's a vacancy in the department, or we can create one, you then have the opportunity. Or that department is like, oh, we love the way this person has been with us. Can we take this person on? We keep that open, and that's a possibility in the company. So before you even get to the point where you're putting in your resignation letter, all this would have happened. And then another thing we do is, and another thing we track very closely is one-to-one conversations with your manager. Now, every manager must have one-to-ones with their team members, where you're not just talking about goals. Sometimes we even feed the kind of questions you will ask. So we have a theme for the week or a theme for the month. Maybe this month we're talking about your mental health, or maybe this month we're talking about you and your career path, or maybe this month we're talking about something personal. It's important we always ensure that one-to-ones are happening, and so that the conversations are there in the beginning, when or early enough, or even if anyone feels like they've reached the point where they're at the peak and they cannot talk to their managers anymore. My Slack is always open. The CEO Slack is always open. Any exec Slack is always open. Any senior manager in the company is available. We also have a mentorship program where more senior leaders in the company actually could be mentors to junior members from different departments. So we don't pair people from the same department as mentees. A mentor could be in an engineering team, mentoring someone all the way in the sales team, or vice versa, because the point is we create the environment where people can communicate effectively, where people can know that their voices are heard, and then they're rewarded for the work that they do. And then we throw in a lot of fun things. We do a lot of fun, amazing things.
And then how do you ensure that you're getting the best type of people, the best talent, and people? I mean, they're the most important asset. So how do you make sure that you can find that needle in the haystack? And this question is kind of almost twofold, right? It's to those people maybe who want to become an AzaWatu, or those people who are looking for employment elsewhere. What do you look for, number one, but also how do you then get to reach out to them?
Okay. So first off, when we're looking to hire, our recruitment is as blind as it comes. Blind because we might have some unique cases. Maybe I need to hire in a particular country for a particular reason. Or maybe it's on the sales team and I actually need somebody who can drive sales in a particular country, say Kenya. Then it will be specific to that country, and then also within the industry. However, what is blind about it is we're only looking at what your CV tells us, how the interview process goes. And it's not one person that is doing the interviews, it's a group of people. So everybody has put their own insights into what happens. Now, when my team is interviewing, especially, or when we interview, even at the first stage, we're asking, we get the people to talk more about themselves and about what their experience looked like, because we're also trying to get out of them what their personality is. And that is key. For a company that has a 60-40 spread in terms of gender, where 60% women and 40% men are with brown.
Wow. And rightfully so.
Yeah, even all the way to senior leadership, but it's not really about the gender. It's more about, can this person do the work? Will the person do the work, and how well does the person fit into the organization? We then do a personality, test, which tells how this person, if the person, so that focuses mostly on the disc. So it tells me if the person is a driver, or the person, the person is intuitive, or the person is more a numbers person. All that fits into when we find the right hire. Now, like I said, the CV checking process limits to mostly who can do the job. The interview process then goes with, will the person do the job? So it's the person, if the person can do it, will they be willing to do it with us? So there are various, so we tailor the questions in different ways, and then get a panel of 2 to 3 people to interview the candidates, where they're checking and asking questions and throwing things out there. You can tell some most happen online. 1 or 2 can happen in person if they're in a location where we have a physical office, and then people can visit in the office so we can see how they interact with others in the office. Even the responses you get either by email or even in the conversations can tell you if the person would do well or not. However, even after, I'm not saying we haven't made mistakes in hiring. However, when you come in and you join, we keep our probation for 6 months, and people ask why. Our first 3 months is for the individual to understand the company, understand our culture, understand our way to work. So your onboarding is actually very important to us in the first 3 months. Apart from your manager and apart from your team, you have a body that guides you, who you can turn to, or where do I go to for this? Who do I talk to about this? So that body, and that we do a proper check with the body, with the manager, and with the team to make sure that they're growing in the right direction. Then the last 3 months of your probation is now for the company to say, okay, did we actually hire the right person? Is this person fitting into our culture? Is this person fitting into the role that we expect the person to fit into, and stuff like that. So that's what drives and helps our hiring process to find the right people. And the beauty of it is I had to do analysis, data analysis, where we were doing the time spent in the company. Right now, we're sitting at about 3 years, an average of 3 years for each employee. And for our senior leadership, especially the exec team, we are sitting at 6 years within the system. So It shows that we're either, and that actually also helps tell people how well a company is doing. Yeah. When you have senior leadership spending as much as X, Y, Z number of years in the company, shows that they're probably doing something good.
Yeah.
So that helps. Yeah.
And so then the last part, and I don't know whether you want to answer that in the AZA hat or in your retired hat, is about the next generation.
Okay.
What skills do you foresee being important for the next generation? And what advice would you give somebody who is just walking into the job market?
Okay. There are just some basic things that so some of the things that the next generation needs to think about, or the current generation or the upcoming generation, and I'm hoping my son's generation to think about is they need to prioritize a certain balance with their technical, with their interpersonal, and then the adaptivity. What that means is they need so the workforce now is more rapid. The pace is more rapid. People are innovating on a daily basis. There are industries are evolving. So one thing that must be key is in their proficiency when it comes to digital or technical skills, where you're either data can never go away. So some understanding of how to analyze or leverage data would help a lot, because it then drives decision making. It's coming here to stay. There's not much we can do about it, but it's more about a knowledge of the tool, how it's applied. Honestly, I do not think AI is going to be replacing anybody directly, but I think they will just make us be more efficient, more effective in our workspace. So that when it comes to technology, they need to look more in that space. Another thing has to do, and I talked about the interpersonal skill, it's the critical thinking, being able to step back and analyze what you see in a broader picture. Do not just focus on where you are as a person. Focus on what job you have. And once you come into an organization, one of the things you should be asking is, what is the company about? What is their vision? Where are they going? What can I learn, or what have I learned, or what do I need to learn to get me there? How can I bring about some ideas, either original or even fine-tuned, to solve problems then that would create value at the end of the day? And then one thing people do not realize is actually our emotional intelligence. Our EQ is key. You need to be empathic. You need to communicate. You need to know how to collaborate. The days where we used to work in silos and just work on our own have passed. If you want to, add value to a company, you need to understand where each person is coming from. In diversity, I realize, like I said, I'm Nigerian and my colleagues are from different parts. So one of the things we teach, or one of the things we guide on at the beginning of your time at AZA, is to take you through our cross-cultural communication. Because I'm Nigerian, even though I've had the advantage of interacting with multiple cultures, multiple countries, there might be someone who has only interacted with one mindset or one cultural mindset. So I'm talking to a Kenyan on my team. I know that Nigerians are typically known to be aggressive. We are like, but if I then flip over to my Kenyan or my Ugandan colleague, they're more laid back, more, mellow, more, they will get the results. But me, I've run to the end of the road. They're like taking their time, checking everything along the way, just to appreciate that we're different in that way. I take my Belarusian colleague. She's totally different from me. She's that military style where I'm like, okay, no, let's go. But I like her military style, because if I want to project drive something, it's understanding each person's individual backgrounds, how diverse we are as individuals, and then tying that all to, because at the end of the day, we create value. We want to be in a company where, we can comfortably get paid at the end of every month. The company is doing well, so we do well. The bonus is to be paid, we get it. The company prospers, we prosper. That should be the mindset that anyone should be good. It's not a mindset of what can I get for myself. It's also, as a whole, how can I bring about an impact? And then being resilient is key, because things change. The world changes. The world I knew, I've done this. I got my first job in 1998, so that's 25 years ago. The world I knew 25 years ago is not the world I know now. Right? It's not the world I know now, but The thing is, there would always be setbacks. It might come to a time where, they might say, hey, we're going to have to cut workforce because of cost. And the world is changing. Things are not the way they used to be. So it's being able to adapt as quickly as possible and then see and ask myself, when AI first started a couple of years ago, people were like, no, we don't want, I had to recreate my mindset. My son was like, why didn't you use AI for X? Why do you use? And it's a good thing I have 18-year-old because they're more technology driven than I am. Technology driven, I try to impact in him some EQ so that he too, understands. Because like, why did you do this for this person? Why? I'm like, hold on, this is why. So that helps. And then we would always have setbacks, and being able to, pivot at every point in time and be flexible to adapt to new roles. I've had to pick up hats that over the course of my career, I picked up hats. I was hired as HR, but next thing you know, I'm doing business development, I'm doing project management, I'm doing procurement, I'm talking like an engineer. It's a full understanding of the business. So what value am I creating within the company? What skills do I need to develop for myself for each stage, each level? And then always have a final plan. Where do I want to go? What do I want to be? What in this career, what's the highest level I can get to? Find one person or two people. They don't have to be your direct mentors, but they're people you can. Google is your friend. You can Google and say what this person's career path look like, what areas, and then a lot of them, either a lot of people who have either gone ahead in your career, they're either speaking like I'm doing in this podcast, or they've written books or they've written articles. Go read about it. Go learn from them, either directly or indirectly. Look out for webinars, no Shameless Podcast.
I love that plug.
And listen to people and how they've come, because it wasn't easy for us, especially in the earlier days, but we take one day as it comes. Things will change. And then we be literate in IT, be literate in data, be literate in AI. I'm learning TikTok every day, How can I, because have a global perspective.
Yes.
You'll get to where you're going to.
The thing about what you said across the entire session is that one thing that I massively picked up is that whole aspect of adapting and being flexible. So for me, I think that the most befitting quote is something to do within that topic. And I've got, never be limited by other people's limited imaginations. Why do I say that? I never would have expected that you were a statistician. and the thing about pigeonholing or putting that perspective in front of getting to understand and know, and having the empathy, having the flexibility, having the scope to see more than what your own bias might have, is that it opens you to a multitude of different things. And so when I listen to your story, the fact that you're a statistician is only but one, but you are a sibling out of 7, and you're not the eldest, but you sit in the middle, and yet you are mediating, and you're able to observe and bring that collective group unity towards across the siblings and your mom as well. And I think sometimes people get stuck within their job titles, job roles, and they then limit themselves because society has limited their imagination. And so even your role within your family, I feel that is so symbolic of that you can be in and amongst 7, but still lead and still guide and still mediate and still be such an integral part towards making that work.
Yes.
And I think those type of changes and the ability to make that change, for me, resonates to the idea of not letting others limit your imagination, but also you pursuing. And when you sit down with your dad and your dad says, Premo, you're currently in the middle. I'm not demanding anything from you, but I believe in you.
Exactly.
And that then just unlocks. And I mean, we talked about many different things, and the last thing I'm going to just touch on is resilience, emotional intelligence, technology. And at the end of it all, when we look at what is coming, not only have I seen it in the story that you've told, resilience, emotional intelligence, technology. These are the things that people need to build on. We can be worried about AI, we can talk about AI, but the fundamental connection between people sits in our ability to connect to stories, our ability to put the right technology, to maximize productivity, to add value. But that journey is never easy, and it's going to have a good level of emotional intelligence and resilience. And your journey where you've pivoted is a testament to why I believe the quote is so pertinent, and that is never be limited by other people's limited imagination.
True.
Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much.
It's been a wonderful discussion, and I am going to be watching AZA Finance, and at some point I will be reaching back out to you, because journeys like this are amazing, and you guys are on an amazing growth trajectory. So keep up the great work.
Thank you.
This podcast is brought to you by Transformation Leader. You can follow us at www.t4leader.com.